Hey everyone, it's Matt here, the TokuDragon. And a while back, just last month when Deca Ranger was released in the US, I talked about the fact that it seemed as if the fansubs that were out online, at least one in particular, were actually taken and used for the release. Now, we knew this because of the fact that there was a specific term that was used, and it was one, and even a line or two that you looked at it and you were like, okay, I don't really see how they came up with this exact term, because when it comes to translation, there are a lot of different intricacies. Translation is an art form and not a science, so you can have different translators come up with different translations for a specific scene, and especially when it comes to specific terms, and Sentai, of course, being very specific when it comes to the terminology. But I have yet to actually see the set in full, so I don't know how many other times this might have happened. It might have just happened with this one particular term. So if that is the case, then that's actually pretty cool. But again, I cannot confirm that as of this time. So how does that relate to today's story? Well, apparently, and I heard about this just last week, but I waited for some more updates because when I heard about it, I was completely floored, completely flabbergasted. Apparently, in Vietnam, Netflix Vietnam actually used fan subs for Kamen Rider Saber. So let's actually get into the details of that right now. Kamen Rider Saber. Okay, so here's what happened. So Netflix Vietnam recently uploaded Kamen Rider Saber to their service. So when it comes to the subtitles for it, they didn't just have Vietnamese subtitles, they also had English ones as well. And this is a little confusing to me because usually, while it isn't an official rule, when you do sign a license agreement to actually have a specific show or, manga, what have you, in a specific region, you usually choose the main dominant language in that region. So I don't know if English is a very huge spoken language in Vietnam. Obviously in the US, Spanish is also a very hugely spoken language as well, but usually even though that is the case, you still end up having stuff released in English here. And then in certain Spanish speaking countries, you have different versions of Spanish that's released in France and French, etc., etc., etc. So when you look at the fact that there was English subtitles here, I was like, well, that's interesting. And then we learned that the English subs were actually taken from Fansubs, which I haven't seen much of Saber, so I didn't know their name. And normally I don't use the names of different fansub groups because shish. But in this case, because something was taken from them and because some people from the group did post on Twitter about it, I did want to talk about it here. Now, if you're thinking, okay, but Matt, translation's an art form, sure, but how close are these? Oh, these aren't like, you changed a word around for your homework and whatnot. No, 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 no. This is literally, I said homework instead of a test, but you get what I'm saying. The point is that no, looking at some of these comparisons to the fan subs, which are on the bottom of these pics, and the top are the captions from Netflix Vietnam, oh boy, it's literally just copying the damn subs. I mean, you cheated on your math test. You copied it word by word. I mean, honestly, with how close it is absolutely absurd. The only thing that's different, quite frankly, is the typesetting. So when you're looking at both of these, you're thinking, okay, but yeah, clearly Flame subs must have been credited in some way. That has happened in the US. The Gavin subs released by Discotech did credit Millionfold Curiosity, so it can happen, right? But there's other cases where when you look at the O-Ranger subs, Millionfold Curiosity were not credited. So in this case, sure, legally, they do not have to pay anyone. Legally, they do not have to credit anyone because technically a fan translation is a derivative work of something that is trademarked and copyrighted and whatnot. So in theory, they do not need to be credited. They do not need to be paid. But I do have to say, though, as a fan of these works, it does kind of rub me the wrong way when you end up having something that is for free on the internet, done by fans, and you don't even get a credit. You don't even get an email. You don't get anything like that. You just get your work taken from you and then just kind of put on a disc, and then a multi-million-dollar, or in case of Netflix, a multi-billion-dollar company is going to be making their money off of work that you did as a fan. So when I see this happening to fan subbers, it just really rubs me the wrong way. It's not like it's a small startup that's going, oh gosh, golly gee, I didn't know. It's happening to your Netflixes, it's happening to Shout Factory, and Shout Factory, is a huge company. They're not a small company. If you don't know of them outside of Toku, they do a lot of other releases. So they're not just like a small Toku, company releasing shows. So something interesting I want to note here, though, talking about Netflix Vietnam and Shout Factory, again, Shout Factory with O-Ranger, is that both companies went to third parties. So in this case, when it comes to Netflix Vietnam, they went to Skyline Media. I guess Skyline Media is the one, it's technically, licensing it, and then they sub-license it to Netflix Vietnam. Remember, just because something is on, let's say, Netflix or really any other streaming service, doesn't mean that that streaming service directly contacted the Japanese company. Usually there's some other third party, and the third party when it comes to licensing is not the problem here. Where the problem here is the third party when it comes to translation, because if you don't see that translator personally, you're not contacting them personally, and you're contacting, let's say, a larger company, and you're not checking that work, then you're definitely going to be in a situation where you don't realize that the work is actually being taken from some fan, and you end up having situations like this. That's why it's much better when you have companies hiring a translator directly, because you can see their work one-on-one. It's a bit more intimate, whereas when you're going with like a translation house, you're basically just paying a contract or a third party to just send you the work, and you go, all right, it's a 50 episode series, I guess it's done, and then you put it on your service or on DVD or whatnot. And at least when it comes to this specific situation, thankfully they did take the subs down, but sadly I don't know if they're going to be replaced with English subs, which would really suck, because for those in Vietnam who were actually watching this in English, it does suck that they're not able to, because of the fact that there was some issues with contacting a third party about this. Before we wrap this up, though, I do want to mention that the company that worked with Netflix Vietnam, again Skyline Media, did actually comment on their Facebook page. Now, machine translation is being used to translate this, so I'm going to only pick a small portion that was done by the original poster, which I will link their Twitter thread down below. There are multiple Twitter threads. So there's a longer post. I just want to quote the most accurate or the most necessary part for this video, which is, after recording the incident situation, Skyline Media has reviewed the entire process to find out the cause of the incident with the following results. Skyline Media hired a third party to translate the film into English, and they used Fansubs' translations to send it back. But Skyline Media failed to carefully check and compare the sources, which led to the unfortunate incident that the translation of this movie was put on the Netflix platform in Vietnam. So I'm assuming movie is really, this is actually the show, but movie is because of the fact that this is being put through a machine translation, which is why I do not trust them when it comes to context, and I prefer getting human translators and paying them well to actually translate different works. Also, the specific Twitter user that did post this, and again I will be linking their stuff down below, did say that they actually spoke to a specific rep in question, and that they were really nice about the whole thing, and that, they weren't trying to like strong arm them or anything like that. So that is good to hear that this is a situation that everything was actually taken care of relatively quickly, and that the subs were actually pulled. Hopefully, in the future the subs are replaced with good English subs, because I would hate for that to not happen in Vietnam for Netflix Vietnam because of this incident. So either way, though, thank you all so much for watching this video. Love you all. Take care. And I want to hear your thoughts about this down in the comment section down below. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you tune in next time. So, I'll see you.